Creativity is what gives birth to all things, but it's typically always been more associated with artistic endeavors than with the corporate world. This point can be proven by the results of a study that says 8 out of 10 people in offices feel they're pushed more toward productivity than creativity. This means many corporations think productivity is the only thing that matters, and they aren't interested in employees being innovative. But they're wrong. Welcome to Alux. Creativity might be more important than many companies think, and yet they rarely promote it. Well, unless you're Google. The history of Google. Before we know how Google promotes creativity in the workplace, we should first take a quick look at how the company was built. This will help us to understand where the culture for such leadership style was born. There's a rumor stating that when the two founders of Google first met, they disagreed on everything. It's shocking to think that Larry Page and Sergey Brin weren't on the same page at the start. In 1995, Larry Page was considering going to Stanford for grad school, and Sergey Brin was the student commissioned to show him around. It's funny to think about how the tech industry and the world would be shaped by the outcome of this meeting. By the following year, they'd become partners on a new project. They built a search engine that used links to determine the importance of individual internet pages on the World Wide Web. But it wasn't Google at first. No, this search engine was called Backrub. But it didn't take long for the name Backrub to be discarded for the name Google. The name comes from a play on the mathematical expression of a 1 followed by 100 zeros. This name was a better reflection of Larry and Sergey's mission, which was to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Humanity thanks them for the great service of not sticking to Backrub. As the years passed, Google's popularity grew not only in academic circles, but also in Silicon Valley. Google was already improving access to information for academics, making it popular among bookworms, and in 1998, that popularity paid off. The co-founder of Sun, Andy Bechtolsheim, wrote Larry and Sergey a check for $100,000, and so Google Inc. was born. Up until that point, Google's office was just a dorm room. Larry and Sergey then moved the business into a garage in Menlo Park, a suburb in California. The garage belonged to Susan Wojcicki, who at the time was employee number 16 and now the CEO of YouTube. Crazy, right? The office consisted of clunky desktop computers, a bright blue rug, and a ping-pong table. Since then, the company has always kept things colorful. But what happened when the company grew? The expansion. In 1998, Google was already unconventional in the way it approached the work culture. On the search engine page, animations showed how the staff engaged in one fun activity or the other. The company kept growing and eventually left the garage. Then in 1999, the company moved to the home of tech startups at the time, Silicon Valley. Then the Googleplex was born in Mountain View, where the company still has its headquarters today. That was also the time when the search engine stopped being in the beta phase. In 2000, the company began adding new languages to its search engine. Then in 2004, they went public, but they did it unconventionally. The shares were sold in an online auction format. By 2010, Google had over 24,000 staff, and by 2011, Larry Page was the new CEO of the company. And the period between 2014 and 2015 is important in the history of the company. This is when the parent company Alphabet was born, and Larry Page became its CEO, while Sundar Pichai became the CEO of Google proper, which is now under Alphabet. Google turned 20 years old in 2018, and at this point had almost 99,000 employees under Alphabet. All throughout their history, they've understood that the development of their employees would lead to the development of the company. And that's why Google empowers those who work in the company. And that's what we're going to examine next. How Google empowers employees to be more creative. Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, once said, "A lot of companies have innovation departments, and this is always a sign that something is wrong." What he meant by that was that creativity should be the business of every employee and not just a precious few, and that is something Google took seriously from the beginning. So, how does Google empower its employees to be more creative? 1. Creating the time. In 2004, while signing their initial public offering or IPO, Larry Page and Sergey Brin made their incredibly popular 20% rule. They said, "We encourage our employees, in addition to their regular projects, to spend 20% of their time working on what they think will most benefit Google." This empowers them to be more creative and innovative. Many of our significant advances have happened in this manner. Giving employees the time to learn new skills and find ways to use them on their own will make them more creative. The first place this creativity will show will be in your organization. For Google, this was reflected in the development of AdSense and Google News, both popular products of the company that were born thanks to this 20% rule. Free time to learn is important, like the freedom of expression in a work environment, and this brings us to the next thing Google does. 2. Giving autonomy. Google allows its employees to define their work as much as possible. That might sound like a recipe for disaster, but it's all a matter of risk versus reward. The risk is not meeting deadlines, while the reward is a creative environment that will bring growth to the company. Google had been willing to take that risk since 1998, and it paid off. Just look at where they're at today. Employees are allowed to plan out things like the order of their tasks and their approach to solutions. In recent times, they've even been allowed to choose if they want to come to the office or work from home. Google understands it's not enough to set a goal and train people to achieve that goal. The work itself must be designed in a way that's efficient and realistic, but also flexible. What brings efficiency varies from employee to employee, and that's why a form of autonomy and experimentation has to be given so the best paths of success can be discovered. As a leader at work, you might have an idea of the way you want a certain project done. However, those who are actually doing the project might have a better way to achieve the same goals, thanks to their different perspectives. Without giving the workers some autonomy, you wouldn't discover what would work best. And that might just be the next item on our list. 3. Encouraging specialization. We all know the saying, "Jack of all trades, master of none." Well, if you're Google, you would only want masters, and this is what the company works toward. Google doesn't just create the time for employees to explore new things, they encourage them to specialize in particular areas. The time spent learning 10 different things might be better used mastering one thing to its limit. This leads to the perfection of skills that enhance creativity. The more you know, the more you can create. The specialization of Google employees has led to a bunch of masters, making the company overall a jack of all trades and a master of all. 4. Putting everyone on the same page. Google, in 1998, made its mission clear. They wanted to organize the world's information on the World Wide Web and make it universally accessible and useful. They made this clear to their employees as well, at every opportunity they got. This clarity led to creativity that was good for the company. The building of algorithms that sorted out information on the internet was perfected from a constant reminder of that mission. Knowing what the company is aiming for improves creativity, because when employees are mindful of the goal, they can think of different ways to reach it. If Google had given its employees tasks without telling them what the end goal was for, they would do only what they were told to do for fear of straying too far from the company's intent. This is a very common occurrence in companies, especially big corporations with thousands of staff. The employees hardly know the direction it's taking, so they simply do their jobs with no desire to innovate or create. And speaking of creating, there's no innovation without mistakes, which brings us to number 5, encouraging risk-taking. A wise man once said that a path never taken is a path laden with a few stumbles. Creativity is more than just trying to make something. It's also an attempt to see what is outside of the boundaries of what already exists. The truth is, in certain cases, these tests won't yield positive results. However, for what can be achieved, the risk has to be taken. Google understands this and encourages employees to experiment with ideas and theories. The company has been doing this for years. After all, it humanized the search engine industry by using a ranking system to know the best search results and display them in that order. This innovation could have backfired, but it didn't. The same way purchasing YouTube, a company that made short videos, didn't backfire. Would Alux be what it is today without the risks that Google took? We'll let you decide. Intellectual risk-taking, while dangerous, will always be the path to creating new and exciting things. Some people are always in search of amazing things, and they can be the fuel for success. Which brings us to number 6, hiring inquisitive people. Google knew that it was taking on a risk that had never been done before, and for that, it needed minds that could think outside the box the world was in. It needed employees that loved thinking outside of that box. Google's culture of thinking outside the box is clear in its history. They had their own company dog named Yoshka when the company began. There was also a ping pong table in that garage office, remember? The company likes to hire inquisitive people who can improve its search engine formulas, people who are constantly looking for new ways to improve YouTube and all of their different products. A company that only has yes men and yes women with an aim to keep things as they are is a company that's bound to go under. The world is constantly changing, and employees should be looking for ways to make their company succeed under that change. Someone at Google saw the importance of smartphones in the lives of people and was inquisitive, searching for the perfect experience. This gave birth to the Google phones. First the Nexus and then the Pixel line. Inquisitive employees drive a company in new directions the world is gonna need one day. So wrapping this up, Google is 23 years old, and the company has gone through various phases and developed products that have changed the world forever. But Larry Page and Sergey Brin didn't do all of it themselves. They needed help, and they got it from their employees. The company recognizes the importance of its workers and encourages them to be more creative. Because of this, the business has grown. In the right environment, employees can create things that will bring success to a company. Google knows this, and now so do you. And that's it for today's video, Aluxer, but you stuck around until the end and you know that gets you a bonus. So here it is. According to an article by Harvard Business Review, it's not the leaders, the managers, the CEOs that drive innovation, it's the people working for them. The more managers empower employees to think on their own, the more ideas are generated. In a blame-free environment where people are not punished for errors, creativity can flourish. If you want your people to innovate, they have to know they won't be blamed for their ideas not working out.